Okay, I think we are live. Just adjusting my lighting here a second and breaking things. You know, my streams aren't complete if I don't drop, break, or spill something. Okay, I think we're good. I am set up to work at my canvas today. Try to adjust the lighting a little bit better. It's a little intense, but okay, maybe that'll work. Hello. I'm Lynell Ingram. I am the artist of Fumes channel and live stream. And we are here twice a week making art, making messes, and just chatting and hanging out in my studio. And this painting, if you've been following my streams for much time, you've seen me work on multiple times, moving it along. And today we are continuing with it. Of all things, last night I was laying in bed and it came to me what I wanted to do to kind of bring this all together. Just a little goofy there. Maybe. Is that the lights are shining probably in your eyes there? Okay. Yeah, it gets a little complicated trying to set things up in here to be good for lighting and everything else. I don't have a lot of space to work with. And sometimes I gotta get a little creative about how things are set up and where the wires are going and all the stuff. But yeah, okay. Anyway, I think I got just nearly the whole canvas and frame. There's just maybe the very, very top and the very, very bottom. You might not see quite it, but it was as best as I could push back the camera with my lens furthest zoomed out as I possibly can. Make that work. And sorry, I just noticed that there was a line still on here that I hadn't removed from drawing something in and just trying to get, clean it up a little bit. Okay. So I'm hoping that what I do today will get this pretty close to completion. Pretty close to it. And then there will be one more thing that I'll want to do, an element that I want to add that will be like a dimensional element on top, which I'm still deciding on how I'm going to put that together, but it's all in the works. It's coming along in plan, sort of. So what I'm working today, I've got some bigger brushes. Go even bigger. There's a good 2-inch one, and a couple that are about 3/4 inch, a flat and a filbert, and I have a couple palette knives that I'm going to be using, and I'm really just going to be mixing one color and working onto the canvas with that. So that's how we're going to start today. Try to figure out where to put anything. Oh my goodness. Okay. I got my palette to the side here. And I'll get started on mixing colors. Oh, there's my cat. Hold on, let me close the door. He likes to open doors and not close them. He's my studio cat. Mama she'll support. Okay. So I'm going for something that's a warm green, and I want to mix a decent amount of it because it's a large canvas. So I got a little burnt sienna, a little yellow oxide, and a decent amount of white. It's amazing how fast you go through a big tube of this stuff. And I've got some chromium oxide green. In terms of greens that you buy in a tube, this is one that I like pretty well because, oh my goodness, where's my camera? There we are. It's not so like intense. I always think that so many of the greens are just too bright, too blue. I like something that has a little bit more on the natural side. Not that I can't just mix it, but it's kind of nice to just be able to pull it out, this one out when I want something along these lines. So it's on the warmer side. My cat's looking for a place to sit because I moved everything, all the chairs and stuff. Here, you want to sit here? I think you'll mostly be out of the way, kind of. Sort of, not really. More like right in the way. Anyway, Watson is hanging out with us for once. All right, let's start mixing. Start mixing our colors. And I might not even be that concerned about having a perfectly blended color. I don't mind getting some striations, but I don't want it to be too, I don't want it to be too dark, and I don't want it to be too clean at all. So getting a little closer to what I would like to see. I'm just using a really cheapo plastic palette knife for this guy. My cat is showing off, but I don't think you can see the chair he's in. No, not quite. He likes to ham it up if he thinks he might have an audience. He's pretty cute. Okay. Well, this probably won't be enough paint to get me through the day, but that's all right. Session. This will get us started. So, okay. I'm just gonna start going in there, and it's gonna become like a mask, a masking area. It's gonna kind of hide a lot of the chaos of everything that's going on here outside of the figure, and create some, there'll be places where it kind of shines through, where all the stuff will shine through, but it's gonna just be like, as if you're looking at water, but it's mostly covered with lily pads and that kind of stuff. Swap out my cheapo palette knife for a metal one. Get a little better control. It's got a nice sharp edge on it. A little point. So this is... the intention is trying to find the balance, okay, of how much of this I'm going to be adding. How much of everything I want to cover up. How much should shine through. And one more thing that I mean to do also is to, the heart that's drawn down here in white, I'm going to kind of fill in. It's actually like a bit of a raised paint. It was sort of a almost puffy paint kind of application. And I'm going to like fill it in, almost like coloring in the lines I'm gonna let the paint kind of float there and in the little cavities that are created. I'm getting right up by the microphone here, so might be getting some palette knife ASMR against the canvas. Quite hot all day today. For being into October, it's kind of crazy. We're having days in the 80s, like 5 days in a row. Hot days. For somebody who really loves fall and fall weather and all of that stuff, it's kind of annoying. I'm ready. I'm ready for it to cool down. This color is like exceptionally neutral compared to everything else. And that is a deliberate choice here. To create a contrast with all the bright colors and all the chaos. It'd be amazing how quickly you go through paint when you're working this large. And if it stresses anyone else out as much as it does me to cover things up like in this manner, to go in and just kind of, even though it's additive, it's also destructive. Gosh. I hear my cat yelling in the bathroom. He's very dramatic. I was listening to a podcast earlier today that I just discovered. In my mind, something along those lines. In my mind, in your mind, on your mind, in your mind. And it's like a psychology. It's all psychology topics. And the particular episode I was listening to was interesting. They were talking about the psychology of, and history a little bit, of fashion and clothing. And it, like, when did there start being something called, that we would refer to as fashion versus just clothing that people wore? And depending on how you look at it, it might be like 1700s, like think of the French courts and a lot of the opulence and things going on there, the trying to outdo everybody so that you're, and have the most expensive dyes and the most expensive fabrics. So in the beginning, it was largely a thing of, like, you could care about fashion if you had a lot of money. And then as, like, more regular people, or people that weren't as important, quote unquote important, as the aristocracy, would start copying what they were doing fashion wise, and then they would want to change it up to try to differentiate themselves all the time. And that is part of maybe what creates the idea of the cycles of fashion. Outside of course, there being seasonal things. So it kind of started as like a opulence thing, according to this idea. And from there, you know, you get into like the 1800s, like around the time of the Industrial Revolution. And men's fashion goes to be more practical, less opulent, and the opulent elements of fashion stayed for what was considered women's fashion. And there was a lot of unpleasantness in that. Like, yeah, you're a decorative, it's all decorative stuff that you're wearing, not as practical if you're going to be considered fashionable. Some of it literally painful, corsetting, and no idea of comfort, you know? You wear, if it's cold, you're cold with what you're wearing. If it's hot and you got the huge skirts on, you're hot, and that's just kind of tough. That's just what it was. And from there, we nowadays have extremely fast-paced fashion. Now you can follow trends online. Things move crazy fast. And I've personally never been really great with any of that. But it's always kind of fascinated me in the way that, like, why do people choose what they choose to represent themselves? So I've got to mix a little bit more paint running out. Yeah, why do we choose what we choose? Because we choose the things we choose for a reason, whether we think we're buying into fashion or not. Whether we believe it's for comfort, practicality, flattering, we think it's flattering, or it identifies us in some way. And that's the other element of it that's so fascinating to me. In psychology, the idea of like how we identify ourselves and each other. It is our personalities and our identities, and then it is also, of course, how we present ourselves to each other. So in that sense, being our clothing, our homes. So it's us, our style, our fashion, our clothes, and our homes are like the things that create the perception of who we are. And we make those choices based on, you know, practical reasons, but also as an extension of who we are, how we identify ourselves, how we don't identify ourselves, almost equally as much. So there's an interesting combination of our choices being made to define us as individuals, while also relating us to others too. To define us as part of a group or not, or having a certain status or not. I think the most defined fashion choices I ever made would probably go back to when I was a teenager. And I was fully into being the goth kid, the freaky, wear all black head to toe, that whole aesthetic. This was 90s, so pre-emo, but I remember, like, I mean, it wasn't more than just simply like I like the style. I also identified with other things that went with it. So I love industrial music, some goth music, the dark sense of humor, dark everything. And that was, well, it identified me with an aesthetic and a style and I guess a group, perhaps. It also, it was armor. It was a way of like kind of protecting myself from people, of disengaging. So what we choose dictates how much we stand out from the norm, how much we fit into the norm, how much we want to be seen or not seen. It's very interesting. And those aesthetic choices extending into our homes. Not just our homes, but yeah, I mean the way that you put together and take care of and decorate where you live. So perhaps in that sense, your taste in artwork too. Yeah, anyway, I'm fascinated with psychology, what makes people who they are, why we do what we do. It's also interesting. Flinging paint around the room already. Did see a couple interesting movies this last week. Yeah, maybe that's better. I watched the movie Nope. Hadn't seen that one yet. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as like a monster movie, as like a creature feature. I thought it was good in that sense. The twist of it had already been like spoiled for me, so that didn't really matter as much to me, so I just kind of took it in for what it was worth. And it's the the director that did Get Out, which I think is really good. I like that a lot. And I wouldn't say that I think this is as good as that, but it was definitely interesting, and I did enjoy it. I'm already onto needing to mix a third batch of the paint. I'm gonna flip around my painting, so it'll be upside down for a minute here. But I want to work on the other side without having to crouch on the floor. Yeah, I only got a little bit of paint all over my hands. Should rag someplace. Here we go. It's only a little bit of a mess. No big deal. Okay. Next round of paint. And the good thing about using kind of a small palette of, like, I know I'm using XYZ paints to mix this palette, is since I know I'm using a lot of this paint, it's pretty easy to mix it again as I need to. There's also this frustrating point about working like this. Yeah, I would like to do more large pieces along the lines of this one, but a lot of paint is quite expensive as you keep going through it. Spend a lot of money on paint over time. So it's sort of a, you know, good and bad thing. But it allows you to be a lot looser in your work. You can be looser in your brush strokes. When you're working big. Where did my burnt sienna go? There it is. Okay. And yeah, it just allows you to be a little bit freer in what you're doing when you're working large versus working small. But the desire to be a little bit precious with your materials is something that you can run into also. And I don't have a good solution for that. That's something that I am kind of trying to balance myself. I'm working on this and going through an absolute ton of paint. So third time that I'm mixing again. About the same size pile. This time maybe a little bit more. And still applying with a palette brush. And I realize that right now it kind of just looks very messy. But it's sort of a gotta trust the process kind of a thing. Just trying to double check, make sure that I don't have any of my junk in the way. I got a light right here that I know is in frame a bit, but without the light right there, it's been really hard to kind of like light the entire length of the canvas. The bottom gets really dark looking, so that's doing the best I can with what I got, essentially. There's Watson again. Hey, little kitty. What you doing? I have my drafting chair over by, right on the other side of the light on the floor. So it's probably pretty warm over there. I would think he would like that. Sit, that's where he is right now. Nice warm spot for him. Meanwhile, I have a fan cranking on myself because warm day, warm studio. I don't get any like airflow from the rest of the unit here in the room very much. And of course, all the lights on for having the cameras on. It's quite warm. Very satisfying to apply paint using a palette knife. It's like a combination between frosting a cake and applying plaster. Working back over some parts a little bit and deciding to cover maybe a little bit more of some areas. Trying not to be too precious about it. Interesting to come to the conclusion that this is what I need to do to get this painting closer to finished. I need to mix more paint even. Stepping back to take a look and kind of see how I feel about where I am. Okay. I'm going to mix more paint, but I'm going to slightly adjust my my tone of it, or the hue. I'm going to push it a little greener, and I'm going to start adding kind of a second coat over what I just did. I'm thinking I might work in with a brush a little bit for a little while. And give my palette knife a rest for a minute. At least outside of mixing. Is it possible that I will regret absolutely everything I'm doing here? Yeah, definitely possible. It's always possible. There is no stage of the game in which you can't be absolutely certain that you're not going to completely mess everything up. But you gotta take risks, and, you know, you gotta try things. You gotta be willing to try things. How else can you grow? Okay, where did I put my brushes? There. Look out the big dogs for a minute. Feels like camera placement is odd. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Okay, and I'm gonna swing this around one more time. It's wetter here, drier down there, so to go back to drier side. To work back into a little bit. further along I go with this, kind of the more brave I'm getting about really covering things up and just fully leaning into it. Okay, gonna flip it around one more time. Upside down again. Anyway, I'm gonna get a little smaller brush just to get a little tighter, cleaner around the heart. Okay, and then as long as I have it in this position, I might as well go into there and work on the heart colors that I want to add in. I can see when I look at the screen capture of what my camera's getting, I can see it on my computer over here. That allows me to kind of see what's happening, like if I were able to step back through the wall to see it even further away than I possibly could by being on the very far end of this room, which helps me to see where I might want to add something or change something. But I'm starting to get the effects that I want, and that effect is a little bit claustrophobic. I'm definitely starting to see that happen. And as long as I'm seeing that where I want to do some more changes, I'm going to go ahead and do it, as long as I have my paint still wet. You might have not been able to tell this if you've been watching this whole video, but when I started doing this, I was practically having an anxiety attack when I just start painting over half the thing. But it's working. It's actually working. So sometimes crazy risks can pay off. The things that I'm allowing to show through are like tiny little bits of imagery and text. And you kinda will have to get close to the piece to really be able to see what those things are. And that's a deliberate thing. I really like that kind of like you've got the image. If you're standing back, you understand what's happening. But then if you come forward, you start to see little tiny little details and kind of nuggets of information that start to shine through in small areas. Aw, my cat is demanding attention. Hey, Watson. You want to help me paint? That's very nice of you. I think I might still add some more of the green color at the very bottom between the feet. But as long as I have my canvas upside down like this, I'm gonna fill in some color on the heart first. This will keep it away from my fan and it will still be wet when I need it. Okay, so let's see. Painting and petting your cat at the same time is always a dangerous proposition. All right. I'm gonna need to get out a few more colors than what I have out right now, because I mostly brought out all my like yellows and greens and white and brown. But I think I'm gonna go with kind of almost glazing for this. So let me grab, I've got some gloss gel medium. Get some purple. Purple, red, and magenta. That's what I'm going to work with for that. Okay. So this is pretty small. I'm just going to... I set my other palette to the side. And I'm just going to grab a little guy here to do this part separately. Just one of these little plasticky doodads. It'll work. Okay. So this gloss gel is pretty thick stuff. It's like putty consistency, kind of. So I'm gonna need a clean palette. This little guy like this will do. And I want it to be pretty borderline translucent, like dark but translucent. So going a little heavy on the medium. And one thing about a palette like this is that doesn't work so well for mixing with a palette knife. So that'll go to the side for now. So I've got some magenta. And some red. And I've grabbed my brilliant purple, which is sort of a medium purple, but I think this makes me so angry. And I forget that this tube is like that. Anyway, that's why I hate these caps. All right, I'm gonna get out my dioxine purple. This is a much deeper, darker purple, and this will get me closer to what I would like for the depth of color here. And the values. I feel like I'm losing my voice when I'm talking today. Don't know why. All right, and a smaller brush. Okay. There's a good chance I'll need to go back in and touch up the white lining after I do all of this. It's already imperfect even before today. Apologies for that being loud. My microphone is right by the easel, and I just put the top piece on because my canvas is moving around a little bit as I work. I loosened it up so that I could be flipping the canvas around as I was working. I'd considered working on the canvas sideways, like really long. Thought that that would be an option also for working on the stream on live on such a large-ish canvas. It's 24 by 48 inches. But that might have been kind of odd too, I'm not sure, because it's very narrow and long. I'd probably have a hard time getting my camera. I mean, I could barely get it far back enough to fit in this much of the piece as it is. Try to get more light up here. I have 2 swing arm lamps mounted to my wall over where my easel is. Which work really nice for when I'm just working in here. But when I'm shooting the camera, when I have the camera on these, if I have these lights on here like I normally would to just be working, it kind of blasts everything out on the camera. So it's a little weird about adjusting and making adjustments so things work well for streaming. Okay, time to switch to an even smaller brush. We've got a number 3 filbert brush. So, yeah. Go with that one. That should do the trick. Plenty small for working on a piece this large. I always wondered why they call these little brushes, not little ones, but just in general, the flat round brushes are called filberts. I don't know why. Arrow said hello. Got the COVID? Oh no! I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. Completely covered what you've done on the outside. I know. And it's like a heart attack thing to do it, but it was the right thing to do. Little bits shining through here and there. Came to me while I was laying in bed trying to fall asleep last night. I wasn't even thinking about this piece. I was thinking about all kinds of other things, but for some reason it just hit me like what I needed to do. What I needed to do on this one. So here we are. Additive destruction. And once I finish painting in this heart, the last thing that I'll want to do, I think, to finish this piece is going to be a 3D element. I've talked about doing this sort of thing before, and I'm not still haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it. But we're going to get to it. I will get to it soon, because now I was kind of waiting on understanding what I needed to do to get this piece further along. So how have I been? Pretty good. It's been kind of same old. Same old. Unusually warm for October here. It's in the 80s, and if you think in centigrade, today the high was 31. Actually figured it out earlier today, talking to some other folks. Yeah, for October. I think tomorrow's going to be close to the same. Not yet. Not much news. Nursing my kitty along because he had a little bit of like a sinus infection, but unusually warm. Your city has both a flood and a fire warning. Well, that's an incredible combination, and it's hot and humid, and we just came out of winter. Yay, climate change. Man, I'm sorry, it is nuts. Everything just seems weird anymore. We're gonna drop 30 degrees between today and Saturday, or Sunday here, one or the other. It's gonna be like 30-degree drop in highs. And there's been a lot of that this year, just like from one crazy extreme to another within a day or two. Which can easily lead to migraines for me. Those kinds of crazy changes. But man, flood and fire warning at the same time, that's a trip. Well, I hope that everyone is safe and okay. Sounds terrible. Yeah, we're supposed to be going into the cold season now, so it's just been weird. Like, I went for a walk earlier and I put on sunscreen and had on a tank top and shorts. Like, this time of year should be sweater weather. You know? It is not. Just a few years ago, I remember on Halloween, that there was like this huge ice/snowstorm going on that made it pretty much impossible for the kids to trick or treat. Just one thing or another. So how have you been outside of having COVID? Because that also sounds terrible. And I'm sorry to hear that. I know it's going around again. I have heard. One of my doctor's offices was having us wear masks again going in. However, I also, the same week they started doing that, had to go into the hospital to get an x-ray on my hands, and they were not, at the hospital, they were not expecting you to wear masks, which is just sort of, seems a little backwards. I don't know. What do I know? All right, I'm definitely going to have to touch up my white lines here, which is fine. I think it'll actually be, it'll be a good thing to do even if I was painting this, if I was getting between the lines perfectly and not overlapping at all. They're a little, the lines are a little janky, which is okay, but I can clean it up if as long as I'm going back, gonna be going back to it. Now the stuff, that medium I'm using, my gloss medium, is, it's thick, but it is also a little bit old. And that just makes it even thicker. But right now I have that, and I have fluid mediums, and I have slow drying mediums. And I just wanted something kind of glossy and translucent. First time I've had COVID, so honestly, much better than I thought, but it has flattened me. I'm annoyed because I want to throw myself into Inktober and I'm exhausted and sick. Yeah, it's gonna make you slow down. That's the one thing that seems to be pretty consistent about it. I got sick at the very beginning, like right after the shutdown started. And it was before we had access to masks or testing or anything. It was just, you know, stay home, we don't know. And I did call my doctor and he's like, well, just assume it's COVID and be careful. And so I never, that was very early, very, very early, like March of 2020. And that put me on my butt for quite a while. But like it took forever to get over it, and just, yeah, crazy exhausted forever. So what is a new direction with the painting? I've covered up the outside. It's like my intention is to have all of this come in an almost claustrophobic kind of manner. This green color, as if not only is she in water, but there's like growth on the water, moss, or, you know, lily pads moss, all the things that can grow on the surface, where it's just about claustrophobia and the weight of being covered and everything. But then I will be adding on some dimensional, like lotus flowers, or some kind of abstraction of a lotus flower to also have an indication of some hope, something positive out of it too, like, you know, coming through all of that as a lotus flower does. Yeah, I was one of the first. Yeah, yay for me. Love the concept. The encroaching aspect, almost being suffocating. Yeah, that's exactly what the feel of it is for me. And I was very scared when I started doing it. I was acting cool and collected. but I was a little worried. But there's also the whole idea that, you know, working with paint, the beauty of it is you can always paint over it again if it didn't work. Luckily, it was iffy for a while, but it came together, and I'm liking it now. It's like trusting the process. I could have easily have panicked about 10-15 minutes into working on it, but I just trust the process and go with it. Man, this stuff is thick. This paint. Okay, now I'm just gonna get a little messy. I'm not worried about covering up the white line anymore because I'm gonna pull that back in. So we're just gonna work in the color. I need a bigger water jar. I'm working with acrylic, so I don't have like a jar of turpentine or anything like that. Just water for cleaning brushes. Simple. Plain and simple. You inspire. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really am just kind of willing to jump off a cliff sometimes and see what happens. As you probably hear me say from time to time, this could go badly. But so what if it does? Could also be brilliant. And you can always start over. Can always start over, can always paint over, can always rethink, revisit. And if it's really not working for you, scrap it and move on to the next thing, and that's totally cool too. That's totally okay. The creative process is messy, especially when you want to push yourself to do different things, try different things. Your attitude to let's do it and try is so refreshing and needed, especially for me in art. I'm such a perfectionist control freak. It took me a long time to let go of being that way too. I, for years, really struggled with getting anything done and developing anything because just so afraid. But yeah, working at letting that approach go, just like, you won't catch me jumping off of a cliff in any literal sense, but when it comes to risks with my artwork, that's the safe place to do it. That's the place to start experimenting and going nuts. All right, well, that dries, I'm gonna spin this guy around again. And I want to add a little bit of the green paint around her feet, a little bit more. Just have it kind of breaking up in there. Oh gosh, I'm gonna get another brush dirty. Not really. This poor brush that I've had forever. The paint has all been chipping away on it. And it's not just from like leaving it in water, which is probably where some of that started, but all the way down. It's just chipping off. This thing I've maybe have had probably since college. So it's seen a lot. It's done a lot. It's experienced all the things. Those tones of the heart coming through look amazing. The gradients are stunning. Almost looks galaxy-like from here. Oh, thank you. I went with like a very transparent approach on it, and it was over a dark background. I will go back and clean up my white outlines on it once that's dried a bit, but that was really thick stuff, the medium that I used, so I don't know how long it will take for that to dry. It might not get done tonight. We will see. I think there's something to be said, to be willing to kind of tear something down to create something new. And sometimes when you're really stuck, that might be just, you know, the thing that you need. Perhaps. But of course, what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for everybody, certainly. But just a way to rethink. This might sound terrible, but we're all gonna die, nothing matters, so make some art. Make some crazy shit. Make something that makes your heart beat a little faster while you're doing it. Kind of fun. Scary. True, but sometimes you come out with it with something really great. Every now and again. All right, that. My biggest issue these days is I never mix the right amount of paint. It's almost always too little or too much. I listen to master. We're all gonna die, nothing matters. That's been, like, I think my best weapon about getting over perfectionism. Like, what? But why not then, right? It's interesting that some of the elements I glued down before, under the moisture of the paint that I'm just laying down, are starting to buckle a little bit here. But all the things that I painted over have created some very interesting textures. And there's little spots where you can see what it was, see what it's covering a little bit. So in theory, in the end, hopefully enticing people to take a much closer look and see the weird little details shining through. One of the interesting things that happened to me since being sick back in 2020 with presumably COVID, because we couldn't test then, when I was a kid, I had exertion asthma, and I seemed to grow out of it as an adult. Well, it came back after that. Unforeseen side effects and circumstances. Unanticipated, for sure. I'm gonna either need to repaint this or throw it away, but the brush itself is still good, but I can feel the little pieces of the paint chipping off as I'm working. That's kind of terrible. The layers give it that character. Makes the audience question what's under it. Exertion asthma, that must suck having it in return. Yeah, it's a pain. And humidity has like suddenly become my nemesis. My enemy. It can trigger a very humid or bad air quality day. Can trigger asthma, or yeah, a particular amount of exertion, especially exacerbated by weather. Yeah, getting older is so much fun, and that's the damn truth. That is the truth. Okay, let me... It's like tacky, not completely dry, but close enough that I can work over it. Alright, let me see if I can find the same white paint that I used before. I think it was this guy. This is like an acrylic paint marker, but it's not really a marker so much as it is like a little tip that you squeeze out of. So I'm having so much fun. Yeah, I got a diagnosis, and this is a real doozy, of oops, that was wrong. Arthritis. Not just osteoarthritis, like a thing about getting old. It's genetic, and it's like, wait, I feel like I'm a little young for that. Nonetheless, here we are. Achy, creaky hands. And it's amazing. So yeah, getting old. Yay. I tell ya, we do a little test with this on my palette. Okay, I just wanted to get the feel for how much it comes out as I squeeze it. Arthritis, yeah. Here we are, doing our best. creating amazing things anyway. That's the thing. Like, if I can't at least paint. Like, if it ever came to that, then just screw everything. But as long as I can paint, I can deal with it all. Oh, yeah. Didn't finish building my maul stick yet, so just use my arm to steady myself a little bit. Oh, I saw an almost cute movie, I'll say. It was called We Have Always Lived in the Castle. It was on, I watched it on Shudder, which is horror, but it was really more of like a fantastical thriller. It had like an approach as if like early, oh, there goes my brain. What's the... Oh, man. Okay. The director that did Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands and all those movies. My brain is the worst sometimes. It has like that kind of surreal weirdness to it. Like everything's a little odd. The people are all a little odd and the way things happen. But with also some serious notes. But I enjoyed it a lot. A few things, like after I watched it and I was thinking about it, I'm like, still kind of wondering about this, that, and a couple little things, but yeah, Tim Burton, thank you. That's the one. Oh my gosh. I don't know why I lose his name sometimes. There's random things and random people. Yes, Burton-esque. There's random things that just will, I know it. It's at the tip of my tongue, but synapses just aren't connecting. Ah, yes. It had a bit of a quality, like a surreal quality to it that made me think of Tim Burton. Like his, like I said, kind of earlier stuff, but probably not as good as his best early stuff, but it was just an interesting little world, kind of, that very little, very small, very odd little world that they created. It was fun. Yeah, I'll know things 100%, but the name, no chance, yeah. It's very frustrating, but it happens all the time. Sometimes brains just like to be difficult. I always said that I think my RAM is bad. Like, if you know computer parts, it's like, you know, your short-term memory, basically, your functioning memory. The information's in there somewhere. Doesn't mean I can access it when I want to. Doesn't mean I can remember why I came into a room. It's just how it goes. A little bit ADHD, a little bit trauma. RAM's good, yeah. It really just seems like that. I think it's so easy to make comparisons to the way that a brain functions for your body and a computer. It just works. You got a power bank that keeps shorting out. I've had that happen with a computer before. Kept buying new power supplies and just, they were always bad. And I have things that flash in my face asking for reinstallation from things 10 years ago that have no bearing on now. You know? I hear you there too. Yep. Bad software sometimes. Doing this is very much like piping a little thing of frosting. Love the PC analogy. It just works. It totally works. Bad programs, bad software, you know, all that stuff. Sometimes it's just the best way I can think of to describe something. How I am or am not working. I tried to place the camera far enough that way that as I'm working, I'm not like stepping in front of it too badly. So hopefully that's working out. Would you like to remember the shameful memory from 25 years ago? No, PC. Bad PC. Right. I'm usually pretty good. It's a very bad thing though. Like it's like a way of dissociating, but just taking things and locking them in boxes to not deal with it. Which on some ways seems like a good skill to have, and in other ways it just... Like, have you seen the movie Dr. Sleep, which is the follow-up to The Shining? In that movie, the boy has grown up. The boy from the first movie, it's him. And he learned to handle all the bad things trying to get to him with, yeah, it impressed you, right? It did me too. But they show a little, like in his mind graphic early on in the beginning where he's gonna put something, he sees somebody and he's gonna put them in a box and lock it forever. Yeah, I agree with you. Loved Evan's character. And the box thing with the key, like the box shutting, closing, locking it, like that's very much the kind of the thing of like dissociating, where you put things in a box, you don't want to see it, deal with it, think about it. And the problem with doing that being, another analogy, that box, those things, they leak out poison. They make you sick, mess you up. The girl over the drawers, that was a great visual too, wasn't it? Gets her hand shut in it. Yeah, there was some really good, that movie was great. It was done in a way that felt true to both Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick. I mean, and how do you follow up The Shining? That's like an insanely intimidating thing to do in a serious way. It's a Stephen King that he does that. He did that in Dreamcatcher 2. I don't think that I've neither read nor seen Dreamcatcher. He always has a mental library of like filing cabinets. Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. That's probably like his own, and then he writes about it in those stories. Hi, Watson. I'm back again. Hello, baby. Probably also why many of his characters are authors also. Little cat being adorable. Drawing this with a white paint, it feels a lot like I'm drawing with a bottle of Elmer's glue. But I kind of love it. I enjoy the texture. Okay. Well, that really brought it home. It's very, very dimensional now. So I'll have to handle that with care. That'll probably take a decent amount of time to dry. And it's the only thing in white, so it really is very bright at the moment. So at some point I can decide if I want to tone it with something, like put a little glaze over it, perhaps. Dreamcatcher is unique. I really enjoyed that one. Do recommend. Dudes all go into a cabin in the wood. The snow. Oh, I did see that one. I didn't remember the name of it, but now that you're describing it, I do remember it. That was pretty crazy. Kind of a slow burn, what's happening thing. Yeah, that was a good one. I do remember seeing that now. I maybe missed the beginning. All right. We are, oh my gosh, 2 hours. All right, let me turn this around one more time so it's right side up. And I'm gonna grab the camera and give a little closer. Slow burn, yeah, but still real good. Love those in the middle of nowhere films. And the good acting of the guys that are together and how they... Like, I don't remember it well, but I remember really enjoying it. Okay. So I'm going to grab the camera and move it closer. It will probably be pretty out of focus for a second until I adjust it. But I'm going to do a little once over so you can see a little closer what we've done today. So the camera aspect is excellent. At the angle great so I can see what you're doing as you're working. I really tried to do that. That was like something I spent a little bit of time trying to mess around with. It's a little easier now that I've moved my computer to this wall so that the wires aren't insane, but there's still an insane amount of wires that are difficult to work with. Okay, so bear with me for a second while I grab this camera. Not to break anything. The lamp sitting right here. Okay. Okay. So let me get it a little bit more in focus. Nope, wrong way. There we go. Okay. So you can see the interesting thing with the heart there and how the color is it really depends on the lighting and angle you're seeing it from, how much you see the color in there. So you could see some of the texture of some things shining through, elements of, right a little bit, there we go, of some of the graphics that we've taped in there or painted in there. This side. So I don't have autofocus on, so I'm kind of like live adjusting the focus. This tiny little quote right here is like my favorite thing. And it says, the least someone could do, I covered it up a little bit, but pull that back a bit. It's the least that someone could do is offer to help. I thought that was so appropriate. And texture at the top. I'm getting a little burned out there with the lighting. It's just very inconsistent lighting because trying to deal with all the craziness, different amounts of light that hit at different parts. So yeah, it's still kind of a lot going on, but yeah, that would be it. That is the artwork as it exists at the moment. All right. As my cat wonders what the heck I'm doing, moving stuff around like that. Oh yeah, because crazy cat lady. There's Watson. Oh, what? You being shy? Really? You being shy for the camera? Since when? Okay, so it's a boy. Yeah, he's my baby. The canvas is almost ASMR to me with you going over it in green, seeing the texture, knowing what is beneath it, all of it. Yeah, and it's sort of like one of the last paintings I did where I was covering up something, some quotes and stuff, and it was sort of all about the kind of the inside joke, I think I referred to it as, knowing what's down there, even though you cover it up. Yep, there were the power things. Anyway, whoa. Where's the camera? There it is. Yep, good old wiring. Anyway, yeah, as I'm putting it on my cat. I think good place to call it for tonight. I accomplished everything I was hoping to, and I'll probably look at the painting some more over the next couple days, kind of see if I'm really ready to just do the final things or not. And yeah, we're in pretty good shape. Anyway. Yeah, good place to call it a night. So thanks. Oh, nice slippers are right. Costco. It's good to catch up. Yeah, it's good to have you here again, and I hope you're feeling better. Keep feeling better. I know it can take a while with that nastiness, COVID and all that fun. But yeah, have a good one, and maybe catch you on Thursday. And just for everybody out there in TV land, have an awesome, awesome night. Bye.